Welcome to another episode of Tampa Bay Real Producers. This, of course, is the podcast that is made for real producers by real producers and with none other than Tampa Bay Real Producers, such as our guest today, Mr. Joe LoCicero with Realty 54. How you doing, Joe?
Great. How you doing, Don?
Doing well, man. It's great to have you here today. I know we've done a feature on Joe and his team. I guess it was over a year ago already, which is insane to think about. But there it is, right there, yesterday. Rocking the pigskin, as you can see. I love that cover, right? By the way, that came out pretty good. I like that. Joe was one of our cover spotlights. I guess that was the June issue of 2022. So now we get to dive in a little bit deeper to his story and learn more about the brand and the magic and all the bells and whistles behind it all. So
looking forward to it.
We'll do that now. We are live on Facebook, so if you guys have any questions that you want to ask Joe, feel free to put them in the comments. We have our wizard behind the scenes, Mr. Ryan Owens with Rhino Media Group. Shout out to him. He'll be throwing some of the questions out if you have anything that you want to make sure you ask him. But we're just going to start with a little bit of your background, how things got rolling for you, and how you eventually became a real producer. So did you grow up in Tampa? How'd you make your way here? And when did the whole real estate journey start?
So born and raised in Tampa, third generation. So been here my whole life. Real estate, so out of college, kind of tried to put money on the table, just pay bills, things like that. It took me a little longer to graduate than most. Did, I think, 6 years of junior college, 2 years once I got to my graduate. But hospitality background. So Malio Steakhouse when it used to be off of Zeal, did that for about 4 years. And then Fleming's when it opened up. At the time, graduated, I think we're going back to 2004 now, entered the mortgage business. Okay. So was doing mortgages, worked for a couple companies till about 2006. Things were pretty good. Thought this was pretty easy. Opened up my own branch. Long story short, went belly up in 2008. Mm-hmm. When the market crashed. Back in 2006, I got licensed in real estate, but didn't really get active until 2011 to kind of bridge the gap from kind of when the mortgage went under to getting into real estate. I got my 220 license, was running an all-state agency, just, and everything in mortgages, real estate was really down in that 2008, 2011 era.
Yeah, that was a tricky time.
Yes, very. We had 4 young kids at home, all from the age of newborn to 5. So at the time of the money I was bringing in, it made more sense for my wife to be a homemaker than kind of put her out in the workforce, just where the economy was. So once our youngest started kindergarten, which was 2010, she got licensed. A friend of mine, DJ Rondu, Beta Bay Lending.
Yeah. Believe it or not. Shout out to DJ. They're one of our partners with Real Producers.
Yes. DJ's a great guy. Was telling me about these things that they were doing over at McBride and Kelly called Zillow leads. And the rest is history. That's where it started.
So Zillow was the attractive lead source, that got you rolling?
I think it was the attractive lead source that got us rolling where we could get into production rather quickly. Yeah. Where you could, it might have been, it's nowhere near the price it is now, but even back then, a little bit more costly than most. But you're able to generate transactions right out the gate. So it wasn't something like you had to nurture, like a pay-per-click or social media. Right. You're able to get into production and start to make a little money.
Gotcha. What did you go to school for?
Business administration. So I did business management was my bachelor.
Was that USF?
USF, yep.
You were. Okay.
So split between the campus over there off Fowler and then the one up over in St. Pete, which was.
Did you play ball there? Is that with the football? No,
just
a football fan.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yep, just a Buck fan.
So you got yourself really going, it sounds like, in real estate 2011. That was your first, would you say, full-time year?
Yep.
And were you building a team from day one, or were you focused more on just individual production there for those first year or two?
Individual production. I think like when we were getting into it, our goal, struggling financially, and then I wasn't really thinking about the team. When I looked at where we started at Prudential, there used to be an office, which now Berkshire Hathaway over at Land O'Lakes, State Road 54. Had a branch there, just walked in one day, wife started there. Did about 6 to 12 months on our own until I piggybacked and left the insurance agency. But wasn't really thinking of it. I think our goal initially was saw a husband and wife couple did $10 million in production. Mm-hmm. Did some basic math. I'm like, that's a comfortable life. If we can get there, that would be great. We got there, kept growing. One thing led to another.
Your wife's name is Rose, right?
Yeah. Correct.
And so she got licensed the same time you did?
So I got licensed in 2006, but she started really actively selling prior to me. So I was probably a year behind her in 2010. She was kind of out selling. I was kind of building CRMs, database, drip campaigns, things of that nature. She was out in the field talking to clientele, making all the sales, things of that nature for about a year before I really got into production. And I would work on the other stuff outside of the all-state hours when she first started going.
Okay. So at first it was a Joe and Rose show, right? Yep. You guys were growing your own brands, getting your own production going. How long did it take you to get that 10 million mark?
3 years.
Okay. So when you look back at those early days, if you had to give some tips to somebody who might not be there yet, and they might look at the numbers the same way you just explained and say, hey, you know what, I got to get to 10 million. That is kind of my barometer as to what it takes. What are some things that you think really helped you make that happen?
Well, one thing is we're talking 2011 and where the price points were. Back then, 10 million is probably more like, I don't know, 25, 30 million these days. But I think it's just, one, find your niche. Like one thing is I think that I've seen the most profitable models where I've seen agents net $1 million calling expired, FSBOs, withdrawals, things of that nature. I knew personally, just being self-aware that if that was what real estate was going to look like for me, I wouldn't be in real estate. So I knew that wasn't going to be something I'd ever be passionate about, making the cold calls. I'd rather deal with like a warm nurture, build a clientele, develop a database, and then kind of create a following. So just kind of knowing that, then building on that, accepting the margins, and then, the path was in the math. Everything was, all right, if we do this much, spend this, the more we make, the more we reinvest. One thing we did is like nobody back in 2011 was farming. So a lot of the money we made, we kept our household on a shoestring budget and we reinvested in the farming Land O'Lakes area, which everybody kind of pulled out of. So it'll help us create market share when it turned around. So I think my advice would be, one, just self-aware. Like, what do you really like? What are the activities? Yeah, you can be told by a team leader, broker, or somebody, sales manager, hey, this, and this, how you're going to make money. But if it's an activity that you're not going to do and you're constantly resistant to doing, it's just kind of self-aware on what you like. And then just, I think get out there, fail as quick as you can and learn from your mistakes. We always say you're either learning or you're succeeding in our brokerage.
No doubt.
And the quicker you fail, the quicker you succeed. So just get out there and make it work.
I like that. The path is in the math. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like really trying to know the math, I think is a big part of that. And if that's not one of your strong suits, finding somebody who can help you, break that down makes a lot of sense to me. And then you can make your decisions not emotionally, but based on some data, right? That makes a lot of sense. And so you and Rose were growing, doing your thing. You guys broke 10 million. At some point, obviously, you started really scaling this thing where I think nowadays when your name comes up, at least from my perspective, people view you in this industry, I think, as a great team builder, right? They see an organization that, at least from, again, what I've seen, you have a culture where I think there's like a respect built, that you've done a great job of creating support for your teams. Your systems obviously are working. Your volume kind of speaks for itself in terms of where that's gone. I mean, your best year has been well over 150 million, I think, in a given year. Am I right about that?
The brokerage we had Zillow offers, our top year is 21, but we did a Zillow offer contract was we did a little over $1 billion. Last year without Zillow offers, I think we did 1,432 units for 522 million.
Not too bad. Yeah, not too shabby. And so to build something to that level, I think sometimes people can look at those numbers and be completely disconnected from what type of a business does that even look like, right? But obviously this was a growth process. It was an evolution that eventually got you to these types of numbers and that size.
Absolutely.
When did the whole Realty 54 journey start? And when you think about some of those earlier days, what did that look like?
So I think coming back, when it was me and my wife and we were kind of starting brainstorming on, what this would look like. Everybody was, even husband and wives, they kind of took the team name and it ended up being their last name, right? One, I kind of wanted something different. I was always into URLs, something short, sweet. Two, people constantly butcher my last name. So it's like, correcting them, or did I say that
right? I said it right.
You did. You're one of the few. But, we kind of want to do something different. I thought it'd be cool to kind of have an easy URL even from the beginning. We started 54 Realty. Freck made the changes, not to kind of jump all over the place, but sometimes I'll kind of squirrel out on you. When Freck made changes, went to Team 54 back to 54 Realty, but always was really into having that easy URL that somebody's always going to remember. And then we really had no plan at the time. We were creating it for the growth, but kind of looking back, I'm glad we did, because I feel it's something where everybody can kind of feel a part of, rather than sometimes people feel like they're working for somebody, almost like a boss employee mentality over a leader kind of working together. And we kind of worked, kind of came up with a name back in 2012, went to Keller Williams, New Tampa, recruited there November 2012 by Hank Sorensen. He was there for about 5 years. We're under him until we broke off to Remax in 17. But he kind of helped create the name. Me and my wife kind of sat down with some different options, created it. And then 2015 really started to have enough business coming in where we couldn't continue to service it all. And weren't really planning on growing a team, but brought on our first agent back then, which is Allison Bresciani. She's now running the company for us. And the rest is history. So it's kind of like organically came from me and Rose just working and, kind of building that database and clientele, and then just getting to a certain level where we couldn't service it all anymore.
Yeah, I mean, the thing, I live in Land O'Lakes. I live in Ballantrae.
Okay.
So that whole 54 area, as you know, has been booming now for a while. And I don't know if you had that insight in mind when you created that brand, but when you look back, I mean, it's still not done, right? That whole area is still booming intensely, I think, over the next probably 5 to 10 years, if not longer. It makes a lot of sense to me from a real estate branding standpoint to affiliate with that type of an explosion in that type of an area, right? So when you first went down that path, was that part of the game plan? Did you have that in mind, knowing what was probably planned for that area?
Yeah. So one thing, like, kind of to be a little transparent. One thing, we were living in Land O'Lakes, so we were residents. We were right next to Concord Station at the time we created that. And one thing I loved about Land O'Lakes, everything was new communities, even though it came down significantly, higher price points. And when I was kind of looking at farming, analyzing numbers and stats and market share, when we didn't have agent saturation, there's really no agent dominating the market. In fact, it was wide open.
Yeah.
Like the wild, wild west. Number two, there's not a lot of condos, few mobile homes. You're dealing with nothing but single family residents.
Right.
So I like to play in the, slightly above median price sandbox per se, where it's very transactional. You got a lot of families coming and going. And I always did, we're able to kind of drive an income. I've never been really into the luxury market. We have several agents within the brokerage that are. My wife was great at selling the luxury homes. Wasn't really my niche. I kind of like those master plan communities. They're easy to turn over. Learned all the builders because the construction was going on, so I knew all the floor plans, things like that. And I was able to kind of really become the local expert in the area. Upon that, like 54, we're like, okay, we're going to farm Land O'Lakes, but what communities do we really want to service? And we kind of did the map. It was like Trinity, Odessa, Land O'Lakes, Lutz, coming over to Wesley Chapel and New Tampa. So that was kind of when we were farming Land O'Lakes, but really, if the pin was dropped in Land O'Lakes, stretching out to those areas, if we're buying Zillow leads, Realtor.com, Facebook, things like that. And then it kind of just grew from there as we brought on more agents. More agents got passionate about working in different areas or expert in different areas. So it continued to grow. There was one point where they're like, all right, but if I'm down in Tampa, 54, it might not gel. I'm like, all right, well, just tell them we cover every area north and south of 54 corridor.
Yeah.
You're usually going to fall above or under that. But now, as far as our reach is, we kind of just say, all right, we service 54 counties in the state of Florida.
Oh, that makes sense.
Have referral partners. But it's nice to kind of have that home base on where it all started.
Would you find that most of your business still to this day, Joe, is though within that geographic area?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. Central Pasco.
Gotcha. We actually featured, by the way, Ann Carlson, I think, a while back. So she's one of your top producers, I believe, still on the team. Is that right?
Yeah, over there in New Tampa. She does very well.
No doubt. She's a very funny woman, by the way. She's like a stand-up comedian, I felt like, during our interview.
Yeah, 25 million of annual production through playing golf and tennis.
Yeah, exactly. She's a rock star. So what's the team look like nowadays?
So we have two divisions. We call it the independent, which is similar to a capping model. You come on as an independent agent, have a favorable cap. You're kind of on your own, covering your own expenses, and you run the business within the business. We also have what we call the partnership model, where, we partner with the agent. We're going to provide the resources, leadership, training, CRMs, everything they're going to need, and they're going to provide the sweat equity. They're going to do the work. And it's more catered for new agents or agents who really don't have a database. We probably have about 50 to 60 agents that rotate into that partnership model, and about 20 independent agents who are in that capping model kind of doing their own thing.
Nice. When did that independent model start?
When we opened up the brokerage, which was October 2019.
Okay, cool. So that's unique because I've interviewed a decent amount of team leaders now that have built teams throughout, but I haven't really seen that specific distinction, between this independent model versus, maybe some people do it. We just haven't talked about it, but
yeah. So, I'll kind of talk a little bit about on what my mindset is. We've always kind of been, I guess we, didn't follow the flow of what a lot of people are doing. One, like when we started the team, I got into real estate to work with buyers and sellers. I got to service clients. So even when we were a team and, Keller was teaching you have buyer specialists, listing specialists, our agents, we train and do both. There were higher level of qualification they had to go through to take listings, but they were never restricted where they can only do one side of the sale. When it came to running the team through the Keller Williams and real estate models, one thing that I saw and that I didn't see really in the marketplace was these team leaders were developing these agents, but eventually these top performing agents, outproduce the team. They don't need the team. They got their own database and move on. So they just move to the brokerage or move elsewhere. And everything that team leader did to develop that agent,
it's gone.
They might get, if some of them might get a little revenue share or profit share, but they're not kind of, working through the model and keeping them within them. So I always looked at it as somewhat of a farm league, right? You're getting them in, you're giving them all the tools, the resources, building the database, helping them become independent. And once they are independent, it's an easy transition. The outside world doesn't know what division they're in.
Yeah.
It says real estate advisor on the business card. They come in, they're, real estate advisor to everyone. Nobody knows the internal workings of the models, splits, commissions, things like that, besides us within the office. And I think it provided a platform for an agent where you could give a brand new agent to a top producer, and you really never have to change anything. Your branding, your emails, your marketing, you're never part of a team. We're never taking credit for the transactions or anything like that.
Yeah.
So
the people that are in your independent model, they all have their independent brands within that. That's what they market. But at the end of the day, they're still under their
and some of them will still do the same branding, because we have like one thing that we did, which I think is unique to most brokers. We have what we call an a la carte menu, where it's a lot of stuff that we do internally for our partnership model that we will leverage on an a la carte, where it's not a profit, it's not a profit center for us, but we're just, cost sharing with the agents. But I know when you're kind of growing your own brand and you're bringing on an assistant for 40 hours, things get tight. You might not need them for the 40 hours, but you do need some help. So, if we need someone for postcards or rent a sign or rent a lockbox, we have this kind of menu that the independents can kind of choose to use in certain services. Like we do full listing coordination, like we do for our agents. It's a flat fee. And then the agents never have to deal with MLS or, put it on social, things like that. It's something that our marketing team does it and passes on the cost. So the independents, it's going to depend on what they want to do. Like we have Jordan Praise, probably our top independent. He's over in Polk County, building his own team. Everything's kind of, going to be branded to him, similar to what we did on the team. But there's other agents who kind of just take on the brand, but their profitability is going to look a lot different because they're putting in not only their own sweat equity, but their own equity, paying for their brand, their marketing, whatever it might be. And they're not relying on the agent, almost like, for resources, leads and things like that. They're kind of out hunting on their own and finding their own business. So it really comes down to a profitability standpoint for them. And it's not to say we have a lot of agents on our partnership model that make more than independent. So it really depends on what you want to do, what your goals are,
right,
and things of that nature. Usually if you're doing a similar transaction, you're going to make more on the independent model than the partnership model because splits are going to be different.
Of course. But it makes sense that it would help impact retention, I would have to think, in a big way, right?
I would say, I don't know exactly what, it is in the area, but I got to think that's one thing we pride ourselves on is I think retention is one of the highest in the industry for the Tampa Bay market.
How many agents do you have now as part of the team?
So partnership model, roughly about 60, and then independents a little over, I think 21 to be exact.
Nice. So, you're clipping away at about a 90, 80 something. And math was never my strong suit, but yes, that's a good group that you're working with. And so you're not really doing anything, I'm assuming, anymore on the personal sales side. You're all supporting
production. Occasionally, if it's a brother, mom, dad, something like that.
Yeah.
I'll do a sale, but everything else, if it's somebody who really kind of still wants me to be engaged, I'll bring an agent on. They'll pretty much lead it up, but I might have a couple conversations like we're working it together.
Yep.
But production's all done by the agents. I'm just kind of focused on what can I do to give them the skills they need to be equipped with to perform better in the market. Everything that I've learned as a practitioner doing what they're doing now, where can I be of service so that way I can get them up to my level. And then we've always been a thought, me and Rose, is, hey, if we help everybody to get to where we are, then we're going to be doing just fine. We don't have to focus on the splits or focus on how much we make from one agent. It's like, hey, let's just have this like firm or niche organization. We're getting everybody up to our level. Standard.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So what's Rose's role now?
So she kind of will do some high level stuff, but as far as engage in the day-to-day operations, pretty much we have a big property we bought up in Brooksville about a year ago, 15 acres. So she does a lot of land and, look over some things here and there. But we have Allison kind of running the day-to-day stuff.
Got some horses and cows and goats hanging out.
We just took a steer on we had a neighbor who moved, didn't have a place where it had a pig as well. We weren't really wanting the pig, but we did take the steer. And it's a learning curve. That happened last week.
There you go, man. Yeah, I would imagine there's a lot to learn when you're starting to deal with steers, right?
Yeah, he wasn't. They told me if he puts his head down,
still push mowing or what?
No, we got a couple riders out there now, a couple Gravely, so I got to learn about that.
There you go.
And then the steer, jumped in with him, and they always say if the head goes down, kind of steer, and his head was down, but he got excited, and he's almost trying to jump on me. So I called one of the agents who's actually in our office. He's a cattle rancher. I'm like, hey, what the hell does this mean? He's like, oh man, he's excited. Do you pet him? I go, yeah, I pet him, over the fence and stuff.
Yeah.
To kind of just give him attention. He's like, oh yeah, he wants to play with you. And what they usually do when they want to play with you is roll you up in a ball. I'm like, dude, this guy will crush me. And I'm a big guy. So, learning something new every day out there on the farm.
I have a friend who lives out in Wyoming and he has acres out there as well. And he was telling me that, that's where they get their meat, right? It's from the steers that they have in their backyard. And it's tough because they build like a relationship with these cows and these steers, and the steers are very, loving is the way he puts it, right?
Yes.
That they actually show you emotion, it feels like, and then the next thing you know, they're on your dinner table, weeks later. So is that the intent with what you're going to do with
it? No. This one we just took on. It's kind of like a pet. We have 15 acres. It's cross fence. He's in a 2.5 acre cross fence section. They'll rotate between the two. He's really there to kind of keep the yard down and to kind of keep him going. But with the steer though, there's a local butcher there, and he said the same thing. I was talking to him. He's like, I'm like, all right, so what do you do to kind of sell the meat and everything? Because I went and picked up some meat up there. He's over in Floral City, which is northeast, I think, of Brooksville. And he's like, oh, I gotta have the butcher come in. The butcher takes it. I can't do it. I got to go inside.
Yeah.
And he kind of pulls him away. So our intent isn't thing like that. It's more for just kind of keep the yard down, so we have to mow yet less, and just kind of having it more for a pet.
Yeah, he was saying that like one steer is like 6 months worth of meat, I guess, for their family anyway.
Oh yeah.
Out there. So it's interesting. That's one of my goals too, Joe. Is
pounds.
900 pounds. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, 900-pound steers in the backyard. I like that.
Hey, you got the rhino, man.
Exactly.
I don't know if a steer.
That's the next step. Get some rhinos back there. That's one of my goals, though, is to just buy a bunch of land up in that area. So you're describing the vision, man.
That's
I'm fired up.
Always wanted. Future we got a shelter building now out there. It's cross fence, and eventually, because we have like the 10 acres, the main track, but where we have the other 5 acres, it's like 2.5 acre parcels, and we want to get a donkey and get some goats out there too. So
nice, man. And you have
my wife has chickens. She has a whole chicken coop thing going with about 20 of them running around.
How many kids you have?
4.
How old are they now?
21, 20, 18, 17.
Are they still at the house?
So our 20-year-old is in the military, so she's traveling. I think she's right now at the border, running a mission down there. She was stationed up in Kansas. The other 3, when we sold, we were up in Cherokee Rose, Land O'Lakes.
Okay.
When we sold that, we cashed out, got a townhouse in Connerton. So our daughter stays with our 2 boys. Our oldest is in high school, goes right there to Land O'Lakes. So to kind of keep him in the school district, not have to deal with the commute.
Land O'Lakes
High will pop in there, yeah.
Nice.
So we got a townhouse there that 3 of them are at, and then me and Rose are up there in Brooksville.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I would think that the kids most like all the space with the 15 acres to be able to run around.
Oh, they love it. We got 4-wheelers,
Yeah, exactly.
Side by side, so they have a good time.
Sounds like a good time. So going back for a few minutes to the real estate strategy stuff, because again, I feel like if somebody was to watch this episode, one of the things I would imagine that they would want to be getting out of it is just some of your philosophies, and you've talked a little bit about it already, of team building, right? Mm-hmm. You have a team with, again, 90-plus agents. Most of the people that I've interviewed who are team builders don't have a team of that scale, of that size. I don't know if you have the biggest team in this area, but you have one of them anyway, in the market. So when you think about what goes into your process, and it sounds like most of your focus on the business side is in supporting these people, right? Whether that's team meetings, creating systems and culture that you think is going to help them thrive, right, in the business model. So what do you think are some of the key, lessons you've learned about building successful teams? Because that's been something you've been focused on now for years. What are some thoughts you would share on that particular topic?
And I might jump all over the place with it, but I'm just going to kind of go whatever comes to top of mind. One is emulate before you innovate. So I think a lot of times what I see people do is they want to get somewhere. Like if I see somebody who has success, it's kind of like the Wolf of Wall Street, where Jonah Hill goes, "Hey, you show me that check and I quit my job tomorrow." And, shows them the check and quits the job. It's like, hey, if I see somebody doing something I want to do, I'm not going to question them. I'm just going to be like, yes, 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 because I'm hungry for success. I'm also self-aware that there are things that I might be able to improve on later on, but let me get to that level. And I think a lot of times we have agents put the cart before the horse, where they're trying to already change the plan before they've even started working on it.
Sure.
And that plan's gotten to this level of success. Maybe you can grow on it, but just follow the blueprint. If there's things that you can do, just stick to it and then grow and expand on it later, but don't try to improvise and make the changes until you've reached a certain level of success. Another thing is always be open-minded. I think a lot of times I always say there's 3 key attributes, for a successful agent within our organization. You got to have a strong work ethic, a positive mindset, and be open-minded. As long as you got those 3 things, we'll work with you. I guarantee we'll get you to a level of success that you're looking to achieve, as long as you're willing to put in the work. And there's, I think, a lot of closed-minded. You can kind of go give advice on how to do certain things. I'll tell you, for all the reasons I'll tell you it's going to work, they're going to tell me all the reasons why it's not going to work, right? So just instead of kind of getting that in your head almost, in your psyche, just going out there trying, just get into action instead of overthinking. I think a lot of times, because of lack of action, people tend to kind of get in their own head and overthink.
Yep.
But just get out there, start trying, start fucking shit up, messing it up. And then as you kind of fail, then come back and let's work through these mistakes. So that way you learn so you don't do it again. Everything that I've learned, and everything that I present, like in the presentation I do, there's going to be all the rebuttals are built in the presentation. I have all these rebuttals and I know what's important because I've lost out on transactions or I lost out on a recruiter and agent or whatever it might be. So you got to get out there and fail. I think you can't have the fear of failing. And if you do, and you kind of freeze up, you're not going to get that level of success that you're wanting. And then, I've always had great coaches and mentors. Find like-minded people who you trust for advice. I think sometimes ego, especially with agents, ego is not your amigo.
Yeah.
And
ego is not your amigo. That's a good one.
With agents, I think we tend to see it a lot, to be honest. They get a lot of people, agents, the awards, the accolades over the profitability and think they might know better. But I've always been humbled enough to say, I know I don't know everything. I learn stuff from new agents every day, but also trying to find as many mentors, like-minded people, getting that collective genius so that way I can make my organization better and always being open to their suggestion, advice, and see how I can implement it within my organization. And for an agent to be within their practice.
It's a lot there, and we could probably have a podcast on each one of those talking points, no doubt. But I hope that if you're taking some notes out there, there's a lot to learn. If your goal is to build a team, I mean, I realize there's agents out there who are just focused on getting my business rolling, getting my individual deals going. But I also know that there's a lot of agents who want to do and emulate what you've done, right? Build an organization that can continue to grow. Do you have in your mind, Joe, a goal of how big do you want the organization to get? Are you still recruiting? Are you always recruiting to build more agents, or are you like at a capacity where you're like, we're willing to work with 80 to 100? That's where we're at. We're comfortable. What's your mindset on that?
So, and one thing I didn't touch on, I think the most important thing for building a team is having the right people. I think a lot of times, from my personal experience going outside the organization to bring on key leadership partners, didn't work when they kind of grew up in the culture and understand our philosophies and principles. It made for a much better leader within our organization. And I'm sorry, I just want to touch on that, but the question was,
do you see yourself growing this team even larger than it is
today?
So
as far as capacity issues, as much as we can service, I'm never going to be like, hey, we have this target, but if we don't have the resources or the bandwidth to assist every agent, then, I'm not trying to hit a certain number. I want to impact as many lives with real estate as we possibly can, but obviously we have to have the resources to do so.
Sure.
And have the manpower. Like right now, I do believe one thing that's lacking in real estate, I mean, you can find it online, but is trainings, a lot of these, nothing against them. They're great financially, but a lot of these 100% shops, you get an agent that gets newly licensed, goes to 100% shop, no training, no nothing. Right. They're out there practicing real estate. You're dealing with a lot of laws, a lot of language that can get you tied up in litigation, things of that nature. You really don't understand what's going on. So we layer our leadership in. We have leaders. We have what we call agent advisors. So we always tell the agents, if you go to AA, call one of these agent advisors. Then we have a broker. They can reach out to myself, Rose, questions, just kind of really having the resources that they need to grow their business and be available. But as far as, I want to impact as many lives as possible, which means, we want to service as many buyers and sellers as we can. We want to help as many agents reach their dreams as they can. And as long as we have the bandwidth to do it, we'll take on as much as we can.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, and you mentioned it a little bit about your structure, because I'm assuming when you have, 80 or so agents on the team, you have to have certain, a leadership structure, right, in place to be able to support that. How many people would you consider to be part of your leadership team right now?
So we went through an EOS course, which was recommended by another
great book.
Yeah. And we have an EOS coach who's got to help implement the business. So I would say which sits on the executive team with myself and Rose would be Allison, who's kind of in a similar to a CEO type capacity. Then we have Richard, our broker record. Bob handles accounting and finance. Richard also does human resource. And then Chris is one of our main agents who kind of sits on the board. She's, our top performing agent was 2015, really knows the culture and is in that executive team where we're really making the bigger decisions.
Okay.
When it comes to a management level, we have Debbie Bruner, who kind of does the training, agent onboarding, agent coaching for the initial agents that are kind of coming into the brokerage. Austin, who handles all systems, integration, things of that nature. Horace is kind of like the office manager, runs transaction management, compliance, listing coordination, things of that nature. And then we have, a TC manager, a listing coordinator. 4 or 5 of our top performing agents are what we call agent advisors. What they are is they're compensated a little bit per transaction of their agent roster. And what it does is give a resource for the agents outside of business hours. So that way, we never want an agent to feel like they're on an island, right? Yeah. If it's the weekend, if it's night, they got to call. We're working early mornings. At a certain point, we're kind of shutting it down, that they always have a resource, because we do find that agents, especially agents in a high-level production, tend to stay up a little bit later.
No doubt.
That's kind of the breakdown. It goes pretty depth. The org chart's probably about 6-7 layers deep.
I think that EOS tool is something that everybody should look into if their goal is to scale, at a level that you're operating at right now. I know my mind was blown when I first read the book, and then even this Real Producers is a national franchise, so there's about 110 different markets that we represent with Real Producers, and they have been building an EOS based model on how the franchise operates.
Yeah,
across
how to run the meetings, everything. It gives you the whole blueprint. Yeah. So we really implemented that for real estate, and it's been a game changer for us.
It makes sense. Very cool. So what gets you fired up about the future? What are you most excited about in the next 12, 18 months or longer, whether that's your team or even personally in terms of what you're building? What's the vision look like for you?
I really get, one of the things that I really enjoy the most is where you take somebody who might not see something in themselves that you see in them and kind of bringing that out of them and then get into level of production and then starting to accomplish things that they never thought was possible. So that's one thing kind of I'm passionate about. That really is one of the things that I enjoy from doing the brokerage. As far as where I see the industry, I think it's always going to be, we're going to constantly be in this space of man versus machine. All these companies are going to come and replace the agent. I personally don't see that ever happening. Are there platforms that take away market share? Sure. But I think the agent is always going to be the center point, especially like when you get in luxury markets and things of that nature. I've worked with some of these at a larger scale, and there's a lot of clients want that personal touch and things that a machine will never be able to do. So I constantly see in the agent to, kind of be at the forefront of the transaction. And then what I'm excited about is that I do feel that, we are in a marketplace right now where we're going to have consolidation. I think you're going to see a lot of fewer players get a lot bigger and a lot of merging, acquisitions, things of that nature. I think there's going to be contracts that go out where companies, it's not as easy to get leads as it once was, So if you are lead dependent and you don't have your own book of business, I don't know if it's 12 to 18 months, but 3-4 years down the road, there's maybe 10 players in the area that have, an influx of leads for a new agent to kind of come in and get developed. But obviously, if you're willing to work and find your own business, it's not meaning that you have to join one of them.
Do you still have the lead gen side of the business? Is that still a big part of your current organization?
Yeah. That's something we focus on. That's always been kind of where my skill set has been. And where I think one of our value props is we give what we call appointments. Like we don't even have leads anymore for the agents. It's like, hey, we got a 123 Main Street tomorrow at 4 p.m. Goes on a Slack channel in a rotation, whichever one claims it kind of runs it. Or we have a listing appointment, somebody wants to sell their house. So we've gotten to the point where we have inside sales associates kind of working with nurture constantly on the phone. So if a client comes in, they get the answer right away. Agents, we like to keep them what I call, income producing activities, which are showing homes, running listing appointments. So we're trying to keep them out in the field. And then, we're trying to generate as much business as we can so we can cultivate it and set the appointments for the agents.
Yeah, man. Makes a lot of sense. Couple quick things on the personal side. We've already talked a little bit about the, I guess it's called the LoCicero estate that you have up there, right? And filled out with the 15 acres. Do you have a favorite? You mentioned EOS already, so maybe that's the answer. But do you have a favorite book or event or seminar or author that you feel like has made a huge impact on you professionally or personally?
Yeah, events. Yeah, there's been several events I would say probably had the most impact. There are some books, out there, but I think the events are more impactful. And honestly, podcasts and kind of listening to people sometimes, for me personally, I think has a bigger impact in my life than the books. But like events, like we're in Tom Ferry, coaching for 5 years, team plus for 3 years of it, no longer in that. But I think there was a lot of value there. He has, I know he has his Success Summit he runs annually, and then has Sales Edge, which is like scripting and role playing.
Yep.
That's something that we really took seriously kind of with the agents and kind of did it all as a group, kind of created the culture. So, that he was a huge part of our success, and a lot of things that we learned early on were through his organizations. I met several agents now that we kind of mastermind. They were accountability partners back then. We still hold each other accountable and kind of grew up organically through that ecosystem. John Cheplack, when you start to get a higher level, he does some like high level masterminds, really gets into more of the recruiting, understanding of the human dynamic, super, super high level stuff, but you're talking back to basics. It's not that much tech, what's this widget or what's this integration? How can I integrate 15 things and make my job a little bit easier? He's like, we're getting back to basics is what you need to do. And his message is constantly the same, which is good. It's kind of refreshing because it always works.
Yeah.
And I think, going to his and just...
What was his name again?
John Cheplack, Cheplak.
Okay.
And I think going to these events and then you're finding people on the same path as you and then just masterminding with them, just reaching out. Don't be afraid. Like I was I was always the guy. Everybody's like always timid and scared. I was always the guy trying to get in a room that wasn't supposed to be in. Hey, you got
right.
production. I got 3 million. I'm coming in. Hopefully nobody sees. I don't have the name badge or anything. And just wanted to be around it. I wanted to absorb. I'm like, hey, I know I got $3 million producer problems now, but I need to see what's going to happen when I get 6 million, so I'm prepared. So I always kind of want to get ahead of the game.
No doubt.
And like going to these events, they're all at different levels, different sizes. So it kind of gets you prepared for when I get here. I got a little bit of the plan built out already. When I get here, this is what to look out for. I'm thinking about trying this, and you have 3 of them say, don't try that. We've already done it.
Yep.
You're wasting your time and money. So you're paying a large fee to kind of get in these groups, but the growth you're going to have, the efficiency you're going to create, and the money you're going to save by not wasting it on things that you would have tried, I think is priceless.
No, I think the old adage that your net worth is all about your network is really key.
Mm-hmm.
And so most successful people that I've ever met and talked to invest a decent amount of their resources into masterminds, just to level up their thinking, because that's where it all starts.
I think that's the number one is going to high level masterminds. I know, like, if you're a new agent and need to I know a lot of the brokerages will do it, like Remax. I've never went to, I think is it R4 they call it? I'm not even sure their big annual thing. But Rose went to one of them. She said it was really good. I've been to a Keller Williams Mega Camp. That was pretty good. But like the best one I personally went to as a newer agent trying to be exposed to this, like to start to get into these type of things, I think the Tom Ferry Annual Success Summit is a great one to start at.
I've heard some great things about his programs. We've had a bunch of people that have referred it, over the years now.
They still go whenever he comes in here, and he'll do like a sales edge or he'll do a class. Typically it's in Orlando. I haven't seen much in Tampa. We'll send a group on over to it that hasn't, been around him yet or hasn't seen him or his coaches one-on-one. They'll watch his videos and things like that, but it's different when you can see it in person.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Cool. For people who, again, might not know you that well yet personally, what's Joe LoCicero's favorite show, TV show, or movie?
Man, you catch me. I don't really watch that much TV or movies. So.
I can't imagine why.
Yeah. Off the top of my head, I don't really, I watch football. Sunday, kind of like that. Otherwise,
you a big sports fan?
That's about it. Yeah.
Not
big football. Just NFL. Really, just been a Bucs fan. Don't really follow college that much. And like NBA playoffs, we watched. Went to one of my sons graduated. We went to catch a finals game because of Miami. We were kind of following that a little bit. Butler this year, so it was cool, but not really.
The Joker had his number.
Yeah, he sure did. But just football. I don't really watch too much. I kind of am into more YouTube, I guess, just watching different things, different podcasts. Some could be comedy, like a Theo Vaughn. I like to watch.
He's hilarious.
Rogan, because he's always intuitive, trying to find things out. Things of that nature.
Have you seen the Theo Vaughn episodes on Rogan's podcast?
Yeah.
They're hilarious.
Yeah.
I love watching them over again.
He just came here recently. My son's got pictures with him. So
with Theo?
Cool. Yeah, he came here about a month ago.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah, no, his style of comedy is unique for sure.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah,
some people don't, so it's love him or hate him type of thing. I don't think there's really an in-between when it comes to Theo.
No doubt. That is true. Do you have favorite food?
Oh, man, I like all food. Favorite? Probably steak.
Steak guy?
Yeah.
All right, there we go. So somebody wants to get on your good graces, just hooking you up with some frozen steaks to the house is the way to go.
There we go, man.
What would you say, Joe? So I have 2 last questions as we kind of wrap up here with the episode. We've gotten a ton of content, and I feel like we can talk for another hour on a lot of these different topics.
I thought we're just getting started over here.
Yeah, well, we are. We'll have to have you back for another episode for sure. But in your experience, because now you've been in this business long enough where you've dealt with a lot of the challenges that come individually as an agent, right? And then obviously as you've scaled and grown this organization, which now is one of the largest real estate organizations in the area, right? In Tampa Bay, it's a completely different set of challenges, I would imagine, that you face as a team leader and in that growth process that you would have faced in just dealing every day with buyers and sellers. 2-part question. What do you enjoy more, I guess, if you had to think about the distinction between the two? And what's one specific challenge that you felt like really was a powerful lesson that you learned in that process that has helped you in being where you are today with growth of the organization? So
what's the exact question? What do I enjoy more in regards to being a team leader?
Working on that, focusing on the buying and selling side, working with the real estate sales.
Definitely the organizational leadership aspect.
Versus the organizational aspect. So it seems like that intent of getting into leadership was always there at some point.
Yeah, because my goal is I want to give a certain level of service to the clients in the Tampa Bay market, right? But I'm only one person.
Yeah.
So how can I do that? It's and it's very hard to do because like you were talking about Tampa Bay Real Producers kind of being a franchise, the EOS model a little bit later.
Yeah.
or a little bit earlier, that's kind of easier to duplicate than having the same experience with the agent in the marketplace all the time. That's something we're passionate about. We know it's a goal we'll never achieve, but we're trying to get as close to it as we can. Where every time that we go out there, that we want that the buyer or seller has the same experience with the 54 agent, which is very difficult to do because you have so many personalities and independent agents where you can't hold them accountable like you could an employee. But that's something that we're very passionate about, and just kind of upping the customer service level in the marketplace. Because when we kind of go back to when I was talking about man versus machine, how the man wins is kind of going above that red carpet treatment, going above and beyond. You're just like a bartender is. You're not just a real estate agent. A lot of times you're a psychiatrist as well. They're crying tears of joy, tears of pain. They tend to take the stress out on you. It's learning how to manage those emotions and just really up that level that I think a machine can't replicate.
And, when you're building and investing in people's lives as much as you have been, and you mentioned earlier the effect on the retention, that it's been a very positive thing in your experience. So those relationships are lasting, from that perspective as 100%. A team leader. Yeah. I know that's one of the things that always appealed to me about the teams that I've been involved with in growth and sales. What would you say is a particular lesson, Joe, that you've learned from a challenge that you experienced in this growth, focusing probably on the team building side, since that's been the bulk of our conversation? Is there a particular lesson that you feel like stood out to you?
Yeah. So one, this is a lesson that stood out to me, but it's a lesson that I constantly see with the agents. And I try to tell them, when you got into real estate, you got into make money. Is for an agent, a lesson that I see constantly is pay attention to the profitability, not the awards and accolades. Like, we're in this to make money. It's great to get on stage and it's great to be known, but not a lot of people. There are some agents that I've seen that I've known that, are focused more on the accolades and getting the recognition, but they're not making the money. And I'm like, we got bills. You don't want to this is for financial stability and kind of creating the lifestyle that you want to. So I think, one of the lessons would be, focus more on the P&L than the units and volume.
Yep.
And then I think that also goes into when you were talking about, how big does this get? I was kind of in that mindset just a year ago as recent, where I always thought my blueprint, I want to get down to the Fort Myers, Punta Gorda area. We weren't really built to handle it. So we opened up expansion with Zillow Flex, went down there. That was a tough time. The culture down there, from what we found, was a little different than ours. You're dealing with a different demographic, and it wasn't as tech driven. So from our experience, it wasn't a good fit. So we ended up pulling the plug on that, have an office that I ended up subleasing because we did a 3-year lease. I think we might have been there 8 months, and we pulled out right when the hurricane hit. We kind of pulled out of that marketplace. But I think it's not to be so quick to try to hit the goal without making sure that everything's kind of in place to achieve it, and not really focus on, hey, I got to do 1,000 units this year, or I got to do 100 million of volume, whatever that is, but focus more on what is it going to take to build out to do 1,000 units this year? What is it going to take to do 100 million of volume, and focus on that and pay attention to the activity over the results and just constantly do it and try to get better. Because when you try to do it too quick, a lot of times it's not that aspect just fails, but it also starts to have a negative to the rest of the organization, because you're taking resources and bandwidth that you really didn't have to kind of take on that.
Yeah,
scalability.
That's huge. That's a powerful, and I like what you mentioned earlier about it's not about what you make, it's about what you keep, right?
Yeah.
On the P&L side. Mm-hmm. You mentioned culture a few times, and we didn't really dive into it much, but how would you define your culture?
Very family oriented. Work hard, play hard. We have a culture group that, a couple agents lead. They meet monthly, and every month we're doing different things. It's called the F is in Fun Club. And, they do activities. Like, I think we just had an annual field day, which right there at Land Lakes Recreation Park, right there on 41.
Yeah.
Just did activities, team bonding, things like that. All our vendors came out, sponsored it, had some drinks, brought out a guy who was kind of smoking some ribs and pork, and had a great time. So always really trying to, not always, there's a lot of stress obviously that comes with real estate. So trying to, disengage a little bit and, not be so serious, try to do more culture building events kind of outside of real estate where you can decompress a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then also, giving back to the clientele, like being part of the community, charitable organizations, things of that nature, where we are all working in, and this community is important to us. So just want to give back to our part and be not only like working in these communities, but also be a part of it and give back and do our share. So just a culture of, one of our core values is help first, whether it's within the organization or outside of it, and just kind of sticking to that mentality. And then a culture, it's almost like a family, there's going to be tension sometimes, there's going to be fights. Not everybody's getting along, but at the end of the day, we all love each other, and, we're striving for the same goal.
Which I think is great that when you had defined what you just defined on the family side, that even then leads to what you said earlier about when you go into a new market, if you are going to do that.
You don't have that.
Yeah, it's like that really does take research to figure out whether we really can build and align that culture in this whole other new market, and the answer it could be true, it could not be true, but as you found out, like it wasn't the ideal fit, and it took I'm assuming you lost some money in that process of making that happen, but it was an
significant amount, unfortunately, but yeah, I just think for us, it's more hands-on. We saw a lot of people scaling with more of a cloud-based system. We're like, if they can do it, we can do it. The ego's kind of elbowing us a little bit, and we just felt like that's not us. And we need that more hands-on approach. We need that family-oriented. Who we do bring on ends up really liking, thriving within our organization. But it's more tight-knit. And I think from right now, we go south as Northport and Sarasota, as north as, Citrus, Sumter counties. There's plenty of homes that's on that area. So me personally, as far as I'm concerned, those will be the markets we continue to thrive in. If some of the leadership and people evolve to open up other markets, down the road, maybe. But it's just really that kind of sticking close to home base and doing a lot of stuff more hands-on and face-to-face.
Makes sense. Cool, bro. My last question for you, and I call it our legacy question, just to kind of hopefully get you to think a little bit about I know you probably have thought about this based on our conversation, but when you think about at some point, you'll look back and say, what am I most proud of, right? The organization I built, obviously my family, whatever the most personal things are, professional things are. But to you, Joe, what do you want your legacy to be? What would you prefer to be most remembered by when you think about when that time does come and you can look back?
So this is going to sound a little weird, but I think I heard a quote recently that some people, want to achieve a high level of success for one of two things. It's to take all the recognition or to disappear. And in a weird way, to be forgotten, where the brand kind of lives on. And it's not about me. It's not about Rose. It's about 54 and everybody kind of thriving in that culture, servicing the client the same way, and just doing what's right and, helping people and being part of that community.
Nice.
So not really anything to remember me by, but where once we're gone and completely removed from the organization, that the same culture, the same core values, the same principles, and everything that we built it on are still standing strong in any market.
Very cool. And we'll make sure we delete this podcast when that time comes.
And you get a statue up.
I don't even know who Joe was. Dude, it was an honor to have you here. Excited to be able to dive in. We appreciate the time. I know you're a busy man. And it was fun to dive in a little bit deeper and hear some of the psyche behind what you've built.
Yeah.
As I said before, your name has come up a lot, I think, from culturally in the real estate market in Tampa Bay. From what I've learned is people do respect what you've built. And I think this insight hopefully was helpful.
Absolutely.
For some people to see that. I end every single episode the same way, which is with a challenge. And before I do that, if somebody wants to follow up with Joe and follow up with a quick conversation or reach out to you, what's the best way to do that?
I'm old school. Just hit me on the phone. You could text. Text is going to get the quickest response. Voicemail, I'm checking about once a day. 813-841-8220. Shoot me an email. Joe, Joe, at 54realty.com. We have all the social sites, but I got a lot of people in the office running them, so not as active on those portals.
You could try social media, but you're going to be talking to someone else, right?
You'll get responses from me, but it won't be me.
That's right. That's right. So email or texting. Keep it old school for Joe.
I always got the phone with me.
The challenge I would throw out to you is if you're somebody who listened to this episode, you invested some time to do so, take one specific action step that you can take today that's going to help you move your business in the proper direction. Joe dropped a lot of nuggets today on this call about his approach of how he built his team, the lead gen side, the leadership side, the culture and system side. It could just be something as simple as reaching out to Joe and picking his brain a little bit more, right? Maybe you have to send him a football or send him some steaks, who knows? But I would encourage you to pick one particular action step that you can identify that will make this time worth it. And if you do that, then you're on your path to becoming a real producer yourself as well. So thank you, of course, for being here again, Joe. And we will see you on the next episode of Tampa Bay Real Producers.
Thanks for having me.
We'll check you later.
Take care.